What do you play?
Wow, Zelda, Tetris. That's kind of a big question.
My name is Raphael, and this is a short about the preservation of video games. Video games have been around for about half a century up to this point, and there's no signs of the creative medium slowing down anytime soon. Video games have become incredibly important from an economical and cultural standpoint. We have conventions completely dedicated to video games, which millions attend and watch online to see how the bar in video games gets pushed further every year. In fact, according to the Entertainment Software Association of Canada, the video game industry alone has contributed $5.5 billion to Canada's GDP in 2021. Many major video game publishers and developers, such as Rockstar and Ubisoft, most known for franchises such as Grand Theft Auto, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry, have studios across Canada, showing Canada is responsible for creating some of the world's most beloved games. Aside from Canada, there are many other countries that are home to some of the biggest developers and publishers within the video game industry. Some of the largest developers in the world are located in Asia and are home to some of the best in the game. Out of these Asian countries, Japan is one of the most influential forces within the video game industry, as they have been one of the industry's biggest developers and producers of video games since the birth of the medium. If you didn't know already, one of the most recognized video game developers in the world originated in Japan. Nintendo is responsible for creating some of the world's most beloved video games and characters. A byproduct of this are the countless communities that are dedicated to the celebration of Nintendo's characters and games, albeit Nintendo doesn't really like it when people try to preserve the legacy of their games.
I genuinely just believe this company is evil. I really think that they just hate gamers or their audience that they try and cater to.
Their legal team is spending every minute, every hour of every day finding the slightest thing that they can copyright claim, ceasing and desisting it, and taking people to lawsuits and jails.
So what happens to those beloved video games and consoles once they're no longer available to those who want them? This is where the contemporary practice of video game preservation comes in. A method of preservation you may have already heard of or seen of before is emulation.
Emulators are basically hardware or software that enables one system, called the host, or in this case, your device, to behave like another system called the guest, or the system you're trying to emulate.
Most emulators are incredibly accessible, making it as simple as going into your browser and searching up emulators. You can find websites that list different emulators, whether it be for the GameCube or PlayStation 3, there will most likely be an emulator software that exists to play these games. Of course, this has been ripe with controversy, especially in the case of how Nintendo treats those who value and aim to preserve the legacy of their games. Despite this, not all major gaming corporations punish their players for preserving their history. Phil Spencer, the CEO of Microsoft, wants the game industry to work toward a common goal of keeping older games available to modern audiences through emulation.
And while we weren't sure it was possible, today I'm pleased to announce Xbox One backward compatibility.
Although this is a step in the right direction for preservation, the digital download of older games presents an issue. Danny from RetroQuest and Evan from the Retro Game Bros helped me to understand the fundamental problem with digitized media.
There are a lot of games that you could download digitally. You can have a bunch of digital games, but they don't belong to you. As soon as the service dies, your console dies, there go all your games.
So if you have a Nintendo 64 and Mario Kart, you're guaranteed to play that all the time. You physically own that media. Where digital stuff, it's a little bit of a murky area, and once those things get capped, you no longer have access to them.
If I want to buy Mario Kart 8, it's $80. Digital download is $80. But at least if I buy the physical, I have a physical thing that, you know what, after a couple of years, I can sell it. That digital download is not yours.
Yep. These points are incredibly relevant to the landscape of preservation today. But preservation of video games isn't solely reliant on emulation. Stores like the Retro Game Bros and RetroQuest are a part of the interdisciplinary field of video game preservation. These stores specialize in selling older consoles and video games exclusively, as sometimes you might not be able to find what you're looking for. Besides the downsides of purchasable digital content, preservation remains relevant because of platforms such as YouTube and Twitch that contain communities that are dedicated to playing and displaying older video games.
You know, the beautiful thing about today's society is the internet's evolved so much that we actually have young kids come in who would shock you for asking for a Nintendo NES or a Super Nintendo. So because of YouTube and Twitch, the variety has changed.
Without the lack of support for older titles and consoles from major video game companies, stores like these will always forever be required by those who seek these items. From what my research has shown me, I could see that stores like RetroQuest and the Retro Game Bros play an important part in the field of the preservation of video games, as they serve the purpose of being the last chance of older systems and games to be played or even found.